Hello and welcome to the next devlog. In the last one I quickly summarized how I made my own pathfinding system and added behavior to the enemies. There is however one major thing that is still missing from both enemies and the player. They can't really fight each other, in fact they don't have any interaction between them. So this is where the combat system comes in. But what is a combat system, I hear you ask? Well, I would describe it as a set of rules that a developer has to implement to allow interactions with the enemies. These rules have to feel fair for the player, because if he feels that he has lost and it wasn't his fault, he might just quit playing. On the other hand, seeing that his actions have an effect will lead him to believe that it's just a matter of how much he played and how skilled he is. And so he'll most likely keep practicing and playing the game, and that's what you want. That was a long description, give me a second. Okay, so just to recap, so far my game only uses key arrows for movement, a key for sprinting and another key for grabbing things, like doors for example. My idea was that when the player holds down the sprinting button and presses the grab button, he would perform a simple fist strike, like a punch. This punch would make him move a little bit forward and also knock down an enemy's hit, leaving them stunned and unable to do anything for a brief moment. So with this in mind, I hopped in and made some animation for the punching. And here's how they look. But before I put it in the game, I have to make an animation that will show the player that the enemy is stunned. So, as always, I just jumped into Aseprite and made it in no time. With all of that out of the way, it was finally the time to add everything into the game. And so, here is all that I've added so far. So now I have punching. That's really great, but I need more than that to make the gameplay less linear and force the player to think about how he plays the game instead of just mashing the keyboard until everything works. So he won't end up like me when I'm coding. Wait, seriously, who wrote this script? Why is this here? Anyway, we need more strategy, so I added the option to force the doors. If you have played Hotline Miami, which I'm heavily inspired by, you know that doors are an important part of the strategy in this game. Opening doors there will stun all enemies that are behind them. Now this is a cool mechanic, but I decided to modify it a bit. That's why I made it so that the player can open doors without breaking them, which wouldn't do anything to the enemies. Or he can punch them, which will send them flying backwards for a bit, then stunning all enemies on their way. Now you might think that forcing the doors out is always a better idea. And this is when you would be wrong, because it can only be done once, so the player has to use them in the best scenario, and most importantly, when they are broken, they no longer block vision. So basically, you lose your cover. That made this element a little more tactical, and I really like how it turned out. Anyway, let's watch a quick footage of the new mechanic I just implemented. Oh, I also forgot to mention that I added this red exclamation mark above enemies when they see the player to indicate that he'll be in danger soon if he doesn't do anything about being seen. So yeah, so far everything is great and works just fine, but I'm planning to add some enemies that will be ranged. And as for now, player cannot really handle enemies that are far away. So I came up with these two solutions for this. First of all, player cannot be killed when he's using his roll move. This way he can dodge incoming projectiles and get close to the ranged enemies safely. Second option is to use items, so yeah, I had to make some items that the player can throw. So here are the items that I've drawn. We have a stick, a vase, a gun and some sushi. So yeah. Look, I was really tired back then when I was coming up with these, so don't judge me, okay? But yeah, here is how the items look when they just lay on the ground. So as you can see, I gave them this little hover animation with blinking white outline. So they differ from other future decorations that will be in the rooms. The player can grab them just like he could grab doors. Doing so will place this item above his head, indicating that the item has been picked up. The player can then throw that item by double clicking the grab button. All throwable items will then stun the first enemy hit before stopping. Items that may stun enemies will spin upon being thrown to indicate their ability to affect enemies. And here is how all of this looks in game. So now we have to add the options to dodge hits. But I figured out that this devlog is already kinda long, so how about I make it in the next part? Sounds great? Well, I hope you agreed, since there is no way I can communicate with you right now. So yeah, that's it for this devlog, but there's definitely more topics that I need to talk about the combat in my game. If you want to see how this project will turn out, please be sure to stick to these devlogs by hitting that fat subscribe button. As a side note, this is the first ever video that I edited myself, so I would love to see what you think about it in the comments below. So yeah, see ya!